Long before humans learned how to name places, the land was already shaping itself. Before maps, before borders, before memory, mountains rose, rivers shifted, forests advanced and retreated, and the planet learned how to change without asking permission. In some places, that voice never faded. Across the United States, nature does not whisper its presence. It asserts it. Cliffs rise abruptly from the ground. Rivers carve pathways that no civilization could redirect. Forests grow on timelines that make human history feel momentary. These landscapes were never designed to impress. They exist because of collision. Ice grinding rock into valleys, fire lifting mountains from beneath the crust, water patiently erasing what once seemed immovable. To step into these places is not to observe nature from a safe distance, but to enter a conversation already billions of years in progress. In deserts, where heat redraws the limits of survival, in canyons, where sunlight arrives only in brief, fleeting moments, along coastlines where mountains simply surrender and fall into the sea. The earth reveals itself without translation or apology. This is not a journey defined by beauty alone. It is defined by scale, by forces still shaping the ground beneath our feet, by time measured in geological eras rather than human lifetimes, and by the realization that civilization occupies only a thin surface layer on a restless, evolving planet. Each place in this journey marks a moment where silence is broken, not by sound, but by meaning. What follows is not a list of destinations, nor a celebration of scenery. It is an encounter with 25 landscapes, where nature speaks at full volume, and where humanity is reminded, once again, that we do not stand above the earth. We stand briefly within it. There are places where distance is no longer measured in miles, but in time itself. The Grand Canyon is one of those places. Stretching nearly 450 kilometers across northern Arizona, this immense chasm is not something you simply observe. It is something you confront. From the rim, the land opens suddenly and completely, revealing a scale so vast that the mind struggles to hold it all at once. Depth replaces horizon, silence replaces noise, and perspective dissolves. Far below, the Colorado River appears thin and unassuming, almost fragile against the towering walls of stone. Yet, it is this very river that carved the canyon, patiently and relentlessly, over nearly 2 billion years. Not through violence, but through persistence. Drop by drop, grain by grain, it transformed solid rock into absence. The canyon's walls expose layer upon layer of Earth's memory. Ancient seabeds that once lay beneath oceans. Volcanic ash from long-extinct eruptions. Sediments pressed into stone long before the first forests appeared. Each color shift marks a different era, turning the canyon into a vertical archive of planetary history. Here, time is no longer an abstract idea. It is visible, stacked, and unavoidable. The South Rim offers sweeping, iconic views where the immensity of the canyon fully reveals itself, drawing visitors from around the world into a shared moment of awe. The North Rim, higher and more remote, feels quieter and more contemplative, reminding us that scale can feel different depending on where we stand. Between them, the river flows on, indifferent to witnesses, continuing its work long after every footprint fades. What makes the Grand Canyon so powerful is not just its size, but its honesty. It does not exaggerate. It simply exists as proof that the Earth operates on timelines far beyond human urgency. Civilizations rise and fall in the time it takes a single rock layer to form. Standing here, one feels both insignificant and deeply connected. The canyon does not diminish humanity, it repositions it. It reminds us that we are brief participants in a much larger story, written slowly by water, gravity, and time. And in that realization, the Grand Canyon becomes more than a place. It becomes a lesson, etched into the planet itself. Canyonlands is not a single landscape, but an entire world fractured into pieces. Here, scale is not revealed all at once. It unfolds endlessly. Located in southeastern Utah, this vast wilderness is shaped by the slow and relentless work of two rivers, the Colorado and the Green. Over millions of years, they carved a labyrinth of canyons, mesas, arches, and spires so immense that the land feels almost unfinished. From the high plateaus above, the view stretches outward in every direction, revealing a seemingly infinite network of red rock corridors disappearing into haze. The park is divided into distinct districts, each with its own character. Island in the Sky rises like a stone ship above the surrounding canyons, offering panoramic viewpoints where the land drops away in every direction. The Needles introduces a more intimate chaos of striped rock pinnacles and hidden valleys, while the Maze lives up to its name, one of the most remote and least accessible regions in the United States, where navigation itself becomes a serious commitment. Far below, the rivers continue their ancient work, cutting deeper with every passing century. What makes Canyonlands extraordinary is its sense of distance, not just physical, but mental. Human presence here feels temporary, almost accidental. Roads vanish, cell signals fade, silence expands. The land operates on a scale that ignores convenience and reward, offering instead raw perspective. Sunrise and sunset transform the stone into shifting gradients of fire and shadow, emphasizing every fracture and fold. Yet even in these moments of beauty, the dominant feeling is vastness. Canyonlands does not invite exploration casually. It demands patience, preparation, and humility. To stand here is to realize that wilderness does not always announce itself with drama. Sometimes it simply spreads outward until the human mind runs out of edges. Canyonlands is not a place you conquer or fully understand. It is a place that quietly reminds you how much of the earth remains beyond control and how powerful that freedom still is. Bryce Canyon feels less like a landscape and more like a revelation frozen in stone. It is not a canyon in the traditional sense, but a series of vast, natural amphitheaters carved into the edge of a high plateau stages, where geology performs at its most dramatic. Here, thousands of towering rock spires, known as hoodoos, rise from the ground like an army of stone figures. Each one is unique. Some resemble cathedral towers, others human silhouettes, mythical creatures, or ancient ruins. They stand tightly packed, filling the horizon with shapes so intricate that the mind struggles to process them all at once. These formations were not created by a single force, but by a delicate balance of extremes: rain, snow, freezing temperatures, and relentless erosion worked together over millions of years. Water seeped into cracks, froze, expanded, and slowly fractured the rock. Gravity then claimed what remained. What looks fantastical is actually the result of precise and repeated natural processes, carried out patiently across deep time. Color defines Bryce Canyon as much as form. At dawn, the hoodoos glow with soft pinks and pale oranges. By midday, they burn with deep reds and rust tones. At sunset, the entire amphitheater seems to ignite, shadows stretching across stone like moving ink. In winter, snow settles on the spires, transforming the landscape into something surreal, fire-colored rock capped with white silence. Despite its otherworldly appearance, Bryce Canyon is deeply grounded in its environment. Sitting at over 2,400 meters above sea level, it remains cool even in summer, while winters bring heavy snowfall. Ponderosa pines line the rim, their scent filling the air, contrasting sharply with the barren stone below. Walking among the hoodoos on trails that descend into the amphitheaters, perspective shifts quickly. From above, the formations feel monumental and distant. From within, they feel towering and intimate, closing in from every direction. Sound is muted. Distance collapses. The world becomes vertical. Bryce Canyon does not overwhelm through size alone. It overwhelms through repetition and detail, thousands of forms, each shaped by the same rules, yet never identical. It reveals how nature can be both precise and wildly creative at the same time. In Bryce, geology becomes sculpture, time becomes architecture, and erosion becomes artistry. It is a place that feels imagined, yet exists entirely on its own terms, proof that the Earth's most extraordinary designs need no intention at all. In Arches National Park, gravity feels negotiable. Stone bends, stretches, and balances in ways that seem to defy the rules that govern the rest of the world. Set within Utah's high desert, this landscape contains more than 2,000 natural stone arches, the greatest concentration found anywhere on Earth. They rise from a terrain of red sandstone fins, towers, and cliffs shaped by a slow collaboration between erosion, pressure, and time. What appears fragile is, in fact, the product of immense patience. The story of arches begins underground. Millions of years ago, thick layers of salt were buried beneath sediment. As pressure increased, the salt shifted and buckled, fracturing the rock above it. Rainwater seeped into those cracks, freezing and expanding in winter, loosening grains of stone. Wind and gravity did the rest. What remained were openings where solid rock once stood, absences turned into architecture. Among these formations, Delicate Arch stands alone as the park's defining symbol. Balanced on a narrow base, it frames the distant mountains like a deliberate design rather than an accident of nature. Seen at sunset, when the arch glows with deep orange and copper tones, it feels impossibly poised, a moment suspended between collapse and permanence. Yet, Delicate Arch is only one voice in a much larger conversation. Landscape Arch stretches nearly 100 meters across, so thin and elongated that it appears almost unreal, as if a single breath might break it. The windows create massive openings in the rock, transforming empty space into a central feature. Double Arch rises like a pair of stone wings, lifting the eye upward and outward. Walking through arches is a lesson in impermanence. These formations feel eternal, yet they are temporary by geological standards. Arches crack, thin, and eventually fall. New ones are still forming as others disappear. The park exists in a constant state of transition, quietly reminding visitors that even stone is not fixed. The desert environment sharpens every sensation. The air is dry, sound carries far, then vanishes. The sun is relentless, exposing every contour and shadow. At night, the sky opens fully, revealing stars unobstructed by trees or mountains, reinforcing the sense of exposure and scale. What makes Arches extraordinary is not just its beauty, but its tension. Every structure feels like a question posed to gravity, answered slowly over thousands of years. The park does not offer stability or reassurance. It offers balance, temporary, precise, and fleeting. Arches National Park reveals a truth that is easy to forget. The most breathtaking forms on Earth are often defined not by what remains, but by what has been carefully, patiently removed. Antelope Canyon is not a place you simply walk through. It is a place you enter slowly, almost cautiously, as if stepping inside the earth itself. Hidden beneath the desert surface of northern Arizona, this narrow slot canyon was carved not by sudden catastrophe, but by repetition. Flash floods, brief, violent, and rare, rushed through cracks in the sandstone again and again, sculpting smooth corridors where solid rock once stood. What remains is a flowing passage of stone, shaped with a precision that feels intentional, yet belongs entirely to nature. The canyon's walls rise close together, sometimes only a few feet apart, forcing the sky into a thin ribbon overhead. Light does not arrive here freely. It descends in shafts, bending and scattering as it meets the curved surfaces below. At certain moments of the day, sunlight breaks through the opening above and spills downward invisible beams, cutting through dust and air like something almost physical. The effect feels unreal, as if the canyon is briefly illuminated from within. Color defines the experience as much as form. The sandstone shifts from soft gold to deep orange, from crimson to violet, depending on the angle of the sun. These tones are not painted onto the rock, they are revealed by it. The walls ripple and fold like fabric frozen mid-motion, creating the illusion that the canyon is still flowing, still changing, even as it stands perfectly still. Despite its beauty, Antelope Canyon carries a quiet sense of caution. The same floods that created it can return without warning. Water has absolute authority here. This is not a landscape shaped by comfort or permanence, but by force, carefully applied over time. Every curve is evidence of pressure. Every smooth surface is proof of repetition. Movement through the canyon is slow and deliberate. Sound is muted. Distance collapses. There are no wide vistas or distant horizons, only immediate space, vertical walls, and light in motion. The world narrows, and attention sharpens. In this confined environment, scale becomes intimate rather than overwhelming. Antelope Canyon belongs to the Navajo Nation, and its significance extends beyond geology. It is a place shaped not only by water and stone, but by story, memory, and respect. Visitors are reminded that this is not an attraction, but a living formation with cultural meaning as deep as its curves. What makes Antelope Canyon unforgettable is not its size, but its precision. It reveals how even the smallest spaces can hold immense power. Here, nature does not shout. It speaks softly through light, shadow, and form, and asks you to listen closely. Yellowstone is not just a landscape, it is a window into the living interior of the planet. Spread across nearly 9,000 square kilometers, Yellowstone sits atop one of the largest active volcanic systems on Earth. Beneath its forests, rivers, and valleys lies a vast magma chamber, a reminder that this land is not finished, not settled, and not quiet. Here, the Earth does not merely exist, it expresses itself everywhere you go. The ground seems to breathe. Geysers erupt without warning. Steam rises from fissures in the soil. Hot springs shimmer in impossible shades of blue, green, and gold, colored by heat-loving microorganisms that survive where life elsewhere would fail. Mud pots bubble and churn like slow-motion cauldrons, revealing a surface constantly in motion. Old Faithful may be the park's most famous symbol, erupting with near-clockwork precision, but it is only one voice in a vast geothermal chorus. Yellowstone contains more than half of the world's geysers and thousands of thermal features, each governed by invisible equations of pressure, temperature, and time. What looks chaotic is, in fact, exact. Yet Yellowstone is not only about fire and heat, it is also one of the last strongholds of large-scale wilderness in North America. Bison move across open valleys in massive herds, following migration patterns older than the United States itself. Wolves, once erased from this landscape, now roam again, reshaping entire ecosystems through their presence alone. Elk, bears, and eagles move through forests and rivers that remain remarkably intact. This coexistence of extremes is what makes Yellowstone extraordinary. Ice and fire share the same ground. Violent geological forces exist alongside fragile biological systems, each influencing the other in ways scientists are still working to understand. Even the forests participate in this cycle. Lodgepole pines rely on fire to reproduce, their cones opening only under extreme heat, turning destruction into renewal. Walking through Yellowstone carries a subtle tension. The beauty is undeniable, but it is never entirely comfortable. The land reminds you that stability is temporary. Trails are rerouted as thermal features shift. Rivers change course, forests burn and return. Yellowstone does not offer the illusion of control. Instead, it offers perspective. It shows what the planet looks like when human timelines are irrelevant, when nature operates according to its own internal logic, unconcerned with observation. To experience Yellowstone is to stand on a living system, one that is ancient, powerful, and still unfinished. It is a place where the Earth reveals not just how it looks, but how it works, and how little it needs us to continue doing so. Mount Rainier does not announce itself gradually. It dominates. Rising more than 4,300 meters above sea level, this massive stratovolcano towers over the surrounding landscape like a permanent presence visible from hundreds of kilometers away on clear days, anchoring the horizon of the Pacific Northwest. To the people who have lived in its shadow for generations, it is not just a mountain. It is a force that shapes climate, water, and life itself. Despite its serene, snow-covered appearance, Mount Rainier is very much alive. Beneath its glaciers lies an active volcanic system, dormant but not extinct. 26 major glaciers flow down its slopes, making it the most heavily glaciated peak in the contiguous United States. These rivers of ice feed countless streams and rivers, supplying water to millions of people far beyond the park's boundaries. Here, frozen time slowly moves. The mountain's presence creates entire ecosystems stacked vertically. At lower elevations, dense forests of Douglas fir and western hemlock thrive in cool, damp air. Higher up, subalpine meadows explode into color during the brief summer, when snow retreats just long enough for wildflowers to bloom. Lupine, paintbrush, and avalanche lilies transform the slopes into living carpets, fragile and fleeting. Above them, the landscape gives way to rock, ice, and wind, a world where survival becomes rare and specialized. Weather here is unpredictable and absolute. Clouds can swallow the mountain without warning. Storms form quickly, and visibility can vanish in minutes. The same glaciers that appear peaceful from a distance are responsible for Lahar's volcanic mudflows, capable of racing through valleys at terrifying speed. The land is beautiful, but it never pretends to be harmless. What makes Mount Rainier extraordinary is this constant tension between stability and threat. The mountain appears eternal, yet it is always changing. Glaciers advance and retreat, snowpacks fluctuate, trails are rebuilt as the terrain shifts. Time here feels both suspended and urgent. To stand within Mount Rainier National Park is to feel scale in multiple dimensions: vertical height, deep time, slow movement. The realization that landscapes we consider permanent are, in fact, temporary arrangements of energy and matter. Rainier does not invite conquest, it demands respect. It reminds us that nature's most iconic forms are often the most dynamic, and that beauty and danger are not opposites, but partners shaped by the same forces beneath the Earth's surface. Crater Lake is a place born from collapse and transformed by time into something almost impossibly pure. Nearly 7,700 years ago, Mount Mazama did not simply erupt, it destroyed itself. A massive volcanic explosion emptied the magma chamber beneath the mountain, causing the entire summit to cave inward. Where a towering peak once stood, a vast caldera was left behind, silent, raw, and exposed to the sky. Over centuries, rain and snow slowly filled that void. No rivers flow into Crater Lake. No streams flow out. What remains is the deepest lake in the United States, plunging nearly 600 meters downward, holding some of the clearest water found anywhere on Earth. That clarity gives the lake its most striking feature: color, an intense, almost unreal blue that shifts with the light, deepening toward indigo as the day progresses. The hue is not artificial nor symbolic. It is the direct result of depth and purity, light absorbed by water so clear it reveals nothing beneath but darkness. The lake feels less like water and more like a window into absence. At the center rises Wizard Island, a volcanic cone formed after the collapse, reminding visitors that this landscape did not settle quietly. Fire shaped this place before water softened it. Around the rim, sheer cliffs drop directly into the lake, emphasizing the sense of enclosure. There are no beaches here, no gradual edges. The world ends sharply, then disappears. Crater Lake exists at high elevation, and the climate reflects that isolation. Winters are long and severe. Snow can pile more than 10 meters deep, cutting off access for months at a time. In those seasons, the lake becomes a study in stillness, a frozen ring of white surrounding an unfrozen core of blue, breathing steam into the cold air. What makes Crater Lake extraordinary is not just how it looks, but how complete it feels. It is a closed system, a natural basin, untouched by rivers, pollution, or development. A reminder that some places still operate on their own terms, independent of human influence. Standing at the rim, the experience is less about spectacle and more about contemplation. There is nothing to do here but look and listen. Wind, water, and silence dominate. Distance collapses inward. Thought slows. Crater Lake teaches a quiet lesson. Destruction is not always an ending. Sometimes it creates the space for something rare, a landscape defined not by excess, but by restraint. A place where absence becomes depth and stillness becomes power. Here, The Earth does not show off its violence. It reveals what can emerge long after the violence has passed. Death Valley is a place where the Earth tests the limits of endurance, not just of life, but of perception. Located between California and Nevada, this vast desert basin holds some of the most extreme records on the planet. It is the lowest point in North America, sinking more than 85 meters below sea level at Badwater Basin. It is also the hottest place on Earth, where temperatures have climbed beyond 56 degrees Celsius, pushing the boundary of what the human body and most living organisms can survive. At first glance, Death Valley appears empty. Salt flats stretch toward the horizon like frozen oceans. Sand dunes rise and fall in silent waves. Jagged mountain ranges frame the basin, their colors shifting from gold to purple as the light changes. But this apparent emptiness is deceptive. Death Valley is not lifeless, it is selective. Life here exists on nature's harshest terms, adapting with precision rather than abundance. The valley's landscape is shaped by constant motion. Mountain ranges slowly rise while the basin sinks, pulled apart by tectonic forces that stretch the Earth's crust. Flash floods, rare but violent, rush through canyons and dry washes, rearranging the terrain in hours after centuries of stillness. Wind sculpts dunes that migrate across the desert floor, erasing footprints almost as soon as they are made. Badwater Basin, coated in endless white salt polygons, marks the basin's lowest point. These geometric patterns form as ancient lakes evaporated, leaving minerals behind, a reminder that this desert was once filled with water. Elsewhere, artists' palette paints entire hillsides in surreal colors, created by oxidized metals exposed by heat and erosion. Gold, green, pink, and violet streak across the rock, turning chemistry into landscape. Despite its name, Death Valley has always supported life. Pupfish survive in isolated springs. Descendants of populations stranded as ancient lakes disappeared. Plants lie dormant for years, waiting for the rare rain that can briefly transform the desert into a field of wildflowers. When conditions align, the valley blooms sudden, fragile, and temporary. What defines Death Valley is not hostility, but honesty. It does not soften its extremes or offer comfort. It reveals a version of Earth stripped of excess, where energy dominates and survival demands adaptation, not strength. Standing here, the silence feels vast and complete. Sound dissolves, distance expands. Human presence feels temporary and fragile. The valley does not threaten, it simply exists, indifferent to expectations. Death Valley reminds us that beauty does not require gentleness. Sometimes it emerges from extremity, and sometimes the most revealing landscapes are the ones that show us how little control we truly have and how remarkable life becomes when it persists anyway. The Everglades is not a swamp. It is a river, one so wide and slow that it barely appears to move. Stretching across southern Florida, this vast wetland is often described as a river of grass, flowing south from Lake Okeechobee toward the sea at a pace of just a few centimeters per day. There are no rushing currents here, No dramatic drops or roaring waterfalls. Instead, water spreads thinly across the land, shaping everything through patience rather than force. At first glance, the landscape seems flat and uniform. Endless sawgrass plains stretch toward the horizon, broken only by scattered tree islands known as hammocks. But this apparent simplicity hides one of the most complex and productive ecosystems in North America. Every slight change in water depth, soil chemistry, or elevation creates a different habitat, supporting an extraordinary range of life. Alligators lie motionless in the shallows, regulating water flow with their trails and depressions, unknowingly engineering the ecosystem itself. Wading birds, herons, egrets, ibises, and roseate spoonbills move through the wetlands in search of fish, turning the sky into motion during feeding seasons. Beneath the surface, turtles, amphibians, and countless insects form the foundation of a food web that depends entirely on slow, seasonal rhythms. The Everglades is governed by water timing. Too much, and nests flood; too little, and entire populations collapse. Life here has adapted not to abundance, but to fluctuation. Many species synchronize breeding with the dry season, when receding water concentrates prey. Others retreat underground or migrate as conditions change. Survival depends not on strength, but on alignment with the land's natural pulse. This balance is fragile. Human intervention, canals, levees, and urban expansion has altered water flow dramatically over the past century. Restoring the Everglades now requires some of the largest ecological engineering projects ever attempted, all aimed at relearning how to let water move naturally again. Here, preservation does not mean freezing the landscape in time, but allowing it to function as it once did. What makes the Everglades extraordinary is its quiet authority. It does not overwhelm with height or depth. It absorbs. Sound is softened. Movement slows. The boundary between land and water dissolves, and with it, the illusion of control. Standing in the Everglades, it becomes clear that not all power is visible. Some landscapes shape life not through extremes, but through subtle, relentless consistency. This is nature operating at low volume, yet on a scale vast enough to sustain an entire world. The Everglades reminds us that wilderness does not always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it flows almost unnoticed, shaping everything it touches simply by continuing to move. The Great Smoky Mountains feel ancient in a way that is difficult to explain. Not dramatic, not abrupt, but quietly, endlessly old. Straddling the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, this mountain range is wrapped in a constant veil of mist, the smoke that gives it its name. That haze is not fog, but a natural phenomenon created by moisture released from dense forests, mixing with the air and softening every ridge and valley. It blurs edges, slows perception, and makes distance feel uncertain, as if the land itself refuses to be fully revealed. Beneath that haze lies one of the most biologically diverse temperate ecosystems on Earth. More than 19,000 documented species live here, with scientists estimating that tens of thousands more remain undiscovered. This extraordinary diversity exists because of variation in elevation, rainfall, temperature, and terrain. Each slope, hollow, and ridge creates its own microclimate, allowing life to specialize and persist side by side. The mountains themselves are older than the Rockies, worn down by time into rounded forms rather than sharp peaks. They rise gently but persistently, covered in layers of forest that change with altitude. At lower elevations, hardwoods dominate oaks, maples, and tulip poplars, forming dense green canopies. Higher up, the forest shifts to spruce and fir, echoing ecosystems more commonly found far to the north. Water defines this landscape as much as trees. Streams thread through nearly every valley, fed by constant rainfall and mountain springs. They cut softly into stone, creating cascades and waterfalls that feel intimate rather than overwhelming. The sound of moving water is never far away, shaping the rhythm of the forest. Human history here is subtle but present. Long before national park boundaries existed, the Cherokee lived among these mountains, drawing sustenance and meaning from the land. Later, isolated Appalachian communities carved out lives in the valleys, leaving behind cabins, churches, and traces of a world slowly reclaimed by forest. Today, many of those structures remain, standing quietly as the trees close in around them. What makes the Great Smoky Mountains extraordinary is not spectacle, but continuity. This is a place where life has been unfolding without interruption for millennia, where forests regenerate, streams adapt, and ecosystems endure through balance rather than force. Walking here feels less like exploration and more like immersion. Sound is muffled by leaves. Light filters through layers of green. Time slows, not because nothing happens, but because everything happens gradually. The Smokies remind us that nature does not always announce its greatness with extremes. Sometimes, its power lies in persistence, in the ability to exist, adapt, and endure quietly, long after louder landscapes have changed. Olympic National Park is a place where the world refuses to choose just one form. Here, nature layers itself forest upon mountain, glacier above meadow, coastline beneath storm, creating one of the most concentrated displays of ecological diversity on Earth. Within a single protected area, three entirely different ecosystems coexist. Along the Pacific coast, waves crash against rugged sea stacks and driftwood-littered beaches, where storms arrive without warning and the horizon feels endless. Just inland, temperate rainforests thrive under constant moisture. Moss drapes every branch. Ferns carpet the ground. Trees grow tall and dense, competing not for space, but for light. Further still, the land rises sharply into the Olympic Mountains, where alpine meadows give way to glaciers and exposed rock shaped by ice and gravity. This dramatic variety exists because of isolation. The Olympic Peninsula is cut off by water on three sides and mountains at its core, allowing species to evolve independently over thousands of years. Plants and animals found here exist nowhere else on Earth. Even familiar species take on unfamiliar forms, shaped by relentless rain, deep shade, and cool temperatures. In the Hoh and Quinault rainforests, rainfall can exceed 4 meters each year. The air feels heavy, saturated, alive. Fallen trees do not disappear. They become nurseries, sprouting new life from decaying wood. Growth and decay happen simultaneously, inseparable, turning the forest into a continuous cycle rather than a fixed state. Climbing higher, the environment changes abruptly. Meadows burst into color during the brief summer, when snow retreats just long enough for wildflowers to bloom. Beyond them, glaciers cling to the peaks, slow-moving reminders of colder eras still present in the landscape. These ice fields feed rivers that rush back toward the sea, completing a cycle that defines the entire park. Along the coastline, the rhythm shifts again. Tides reveal hidden worlds of starfish, anemones, and tidal pools. Bald eagles perch above the surf. Fog rolls in and out, blurring the boundary between land, sea, and sky. Here, the Pacific Ocean does not frame the park, it actively reshapes it. What makes Olympic National Park extraordinary is not just its diversity, but its compression. In a single day, one can move from rainforest silence to alpine wind to the roar of waves. Few places on Earth reveal so many faces of nature within such close proximity. Olympic does not present itself as a single story. It is a collection of narratives unfolding at once. Water falling, ice melting, forests advancing, coasts eroding. To experience it is to realize that nature does not need vast distances to express complexity. Sometimes, the entire planet reveals itself within a single horizon. Glacier National Park is a place defined by transition, between ice and rock, between past and future, between what remains and what is slowly disappearing. Located along the northern edge of Montana, bordering Canada, this park protects one of the most dramatic mountain landscapes in North America. Jagged peaks rise sharply from deep valleys carved by ancient ice, while turquoise lakes rest in basins shaped by forces no longer fully present. The land feels precise, sculpted as if every ridge and cirque were deliberately placed. In truth, they are the result of immense pressure applied patiently over hundreds of thousands of years. The park takes its name from glaciers that once dominated the region. During the last ice age, massive sheets of ice flowed through these valleys, grinding mountains into their current forms. Today, only a fraction of those glaciers remain. What were once rivers of ice miles wide have retreated into smaller, fragile remnants, clinging to shaded slopes. Their presence is quiet, but their absence speaks loudly. Glacier National Park is one of the clearest places on Earth to witness climate change, not as data, but as landscape. Water defines everything here. Melt from snowfields and glaciers feeds crystal-clear lakes that reflect the surrounding peaks with near-perfect symmetry. Lake McDonald stretches long and calm beneath layered mountain walls, its colored stones visible beneath the surface. Streams rush through narrow gorges, cold and fast, carrying alpine water toward distant oceans. These waterways connect ecosystems far beyond the park's boundaries. The terrain creates a vertical world of life. At lower elevations, forests of cedar, fir, and pine thrive in cool, moist air. Higher up, trees thin and give way to alpine meadows that burst into color during the brief summer. Wildflowers bloom intensely, knowing their season is short. Above them lies a realm of stone and snow, where only the most specialized organisms endure. Wildlife moves freely through this intact system. Mountain goats navigate sheer cliffs with effortless balance. Grizzly bears roam vast territories, following ancient routes across passes and valleys. Wolves, wolverines, and elk depend on the connectivity of the land, a reminder that wilderness is not defined by isolation, but by continuity. The Going to the Sun Road cuts across the heart of the park, climbing high passes and revealing sweeping views at every turn. Yet even this engineering marvel feels temporary against the scale of the mountains. Rockfalls, snow, and weather constantly reshape the road, reinforcing the sense that human presence here is provisional. What makes Glacier National Park extraordinary is its honesty. It does not hide change. It displays it openly in retreating ice, shifting ecosystems, and exposed stone. The beauty here is undeniable, but it is tinged with urgency. To stand in Glacier is to look both backward and forward in time, to see what shaped the continent and what is at risk of fading. It is a reminder that landscapes are not static monuments, but living records, still being written with every passing season. Redwood National Park is a place where height becomes history. Here, time does not pass quickly, it accumulates. Along the fog-drenched coast of Northern California, the tallest trees on Earth rise in quiet columns toward the sky. Coastal redwoods can exceed 100 meters in height and live for more than 2,000 years, making them not just giants of scale, but witnesses to entire chapters of human civilization. While empires rose and fell elsewhere, these trees continued to grow, inch by inch, season by season. What allows such growth is not abundance, but balance. Moist air rolling in from the Pacific feeds the forest with fog, which condenses on needles and drips downward, supplementing rainfall and sustaining life even during dry summers. This vertical circulation of water turns the forest into a self-sustaining system, where the atmosphere itself becomes part of the ecosystem. Walking among the redwoods alters perception immediately. Sound softens, light filters down in narrow shafts, illuminating ferns, mosses, and fallen trunks that resemble ancient ruins. The forest floor feels sheltered, almost cathedral-like, with towering trunks forming natural pillars and canopies so high they seem detached from the ground. Distance collapses upward rather than outward. Despite their size, redwoods are remarkably resilient rather than rigid. Their thick, tannin-rich bark resists fire, insects, and decay. Instead of deep taproots, they rely on vast, interconnected root systems that intertwine with neighboring trees, sharing stability rather than competing for it. Survival here is communal, not individual, a quiet lesson in cooperation written underground. Life thrives at every level. Roosevelt elk move through open meadows at the forest's edge. Banana slugs glide slowly across damp trails. Birds nest high in the canopy, inhabiting a layer of forest that humans rarely see. Even fallen trees continue to give life, serving as nurse logs from which new redwoods rise, creating generations stacked upon generations. The nearby coastline completes this primordial world. Rocky shores, drifting fog, and pounding surf remind visitors that these forests exist because of proximity to the ocean, not isolation from it. Sea and land work together here, shaping climate, growth, and rhythm. Redwood National Park is not overwhelming through drama, but through endurance. There are no sharp peaks or violent contrasts, only vertical patience. The forest does not demand attention. It commands it quietly by existing on a scale that makes urgency feel misplaced. To stand beneath these trees is to feel recalibrated. Human timelines shrink, noise fades. What remains is the awareness that greatness does not always announce itself through power or speed. Sometimes it rises slowly, steadily, and stays long enough to outlive memory itself. Sequoia National Park is a place where mass outweighs height and endurance matters more than speed. Here stand the largest living organisms on Earth, giant sequoias whose sheer volume defies comprehension. They are not the tallest trees nor the oldest, but they are the most massive, holding more living material than any other life form the planet has produced. To encounter them is not to look up in awe, but to step back, realizing that size can surround you rather than rise above you. The most famous among them, General Sherman, does not appear dramatic at first glance. Its crown is irregular, its branches twist awkwardly, yet its trunk contains more wood than any tree ever measured enough to build entire neighborhoods. Standing beside it, scale becomes physical. The ground feels closer, the air feels heavier, perspective shifts. These giants survive, not despite fire, but because of it. Their bark can grow over half a meter thick, insulating the core from heat. Flames clear away competing vegetation, open cones, and release seeds into nutrient-rich soil. Fire, often seen as destruction, becomes a necessary partner in renewal. Without it, the forest would slowly fail. Time behaves differently here. Many sequoias have lived for over 3,000 years. They were already ancient when the Roman Empire reached its height. While human history accelerated, these trees continued their steady growth, ring by ring, indifferent to events unfolding beyond the forest. The landscape around them reflects that patience. Rolling slopes, granite outcrops, and open meadows create space rather than confinement. Snow blankets the forest in winter, bending branches without breaking them. In summer, sunlight filters through massive canopies, illuminating dust, pollen, and drifting needles that fall like quiet rain. Life moves slowly but persistently. Black bears roam between trunks wider than small buildings. Birds nest high above, inhabiting layers of forest rarely seen from below. Fallen sequoias do not disappear. They become corridors, shelters, and nurseries, supporting life long after their roots stop feeding them. What makes Sequoia National Park extraordinary is not spectacle, but scale measured over time. These trees do not compete for attention. They dominate simply by existing, by continuing, by refusing to rush. Standing among them produces a rare sensation. Urgency dissolves. There is nothing to prove here, nothing to conquer. The forest does not react to visitors. It absorbs them briefly, then remains unchanged. Sequoia National Park offers a quiet correction to modern life. It suggests that greatness is not always about reaching higher, moving faster, or lasting louder. Sometimes it is about remaining growing slowly, enduring fire, weather, and centuries, and allowing time itself to pass without resistance. In the presence of these giants, one truth becomes clear. The Earth's most powerful creations are not built quickly. They are grown patiently. Big Sur is a place where the continent stops negotiating with the ocean. Here, the land does not ease into the sea. It collapses into it. Stretching along California's central coast, Big Sur is defined by a dramatic collision between the Santa Lucia Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. Granite ridges plunge straight into deep water, leaving little room for beaches, towns, or softness. The result is a coastline that feels raw, exposed, and constantly in motion, shaped as much by wind and waves as by stone. Driving Highway 1 through Big Sur is not a journey of distance, but of tension. Every curve reveals another drop, another cliff, another sudden opening, where sky, water, and rock meet without transition. Fog drifts in from the ocean without warning, swallowing headlands and bridges before dissolving just as quickly. The landscape never settles into a single form. It shifts by the hour. Below the cliffs, the Pacific asserts its power relentlessly. Waves strike rock with a force that feels architectural, carving coves and sea stacks over millennia. At McWay Falls, a ribbon of water spills directly from a hanging valley into the ocean, a rare and surreal reminder that rivers here do not reach the sea. Gradually, they leap into it. Above the coast, redwood groves and oak forests cling to steep slopes, fed by coastal fog and winter rain. These forests feel suspended, existing between marine air and mountain shadow. Trails wind through them toward overlooks, where the land simply ends, offering views that feel less like scenery and more like exposure. Big Sur has long drawn artists, writers, and seekers, not because it comforts, but because it strips away distraction. There is little separation between observer and environment here. Wind is constant. Sound travels far, then disappears. Night arrives without ceremony, and the stars feel unusually close once the fog lifts. What makes Big Sur extraordinary is not a single landmark, but the relationship between elements. Nothing dominates alone. The mountains do not overpower the ocean. The ocean does not erase the mountains. Instead, they exist in a state of perpetual tension, shaping and reshaping each other without resolution. Time in Big Sur feels unstable. Erosion is visible. Landslides close roads. Cliffs retreat inch by inch. The landscape makes no promise of permanence, only presence. To experience Big Sur is to stand at the edge, not just of land, but of certainty. It is a reminder that some places are defined not by balance, but by friction. And in that friction, nature reveals one of its most honest expressions, a world still being actively formed, unconcerned with ease and unforgettable because of it. The Napali coast feels like the edge of something unfinished, a place where the land rises abruptly, then breaks away, as if the island itself is still emerging from the sea. Stretching along the northwest shore of Kauai, this coastline is defined by towering emerald cliffs that soar more than 1,200 meters above the Pacific. Their ridges are sharp and vertical, cut by deep valleys that plunge straight toward the ocean. From above, the terrain looks almost folded, pleated by time, rain, and gravity into narrow spines that seem too steep to hold soil, trees, or life. Yet, they do. These cliffs are the result of intense volcanic activity, followed by millions of years of erosion. Rainfall here is relentless. Water pours down the valleys in hundreds of waterfalls, many of which appear only after storms, spilling directly from hanging cliffs into the sea. Over time, this constant flow carved the valleys deeper and sharper, leaving behind a coastline that feels dramatic, exposed, and uncompromising. Access to Napali is deliberately limited. There are no coastal roads, no easy overlooks. The land resists intrusion. Most visitors experience it from the ocean or on foot via the Kalalau Trail, a narrow path that traces the cliffs for miles. In places, the trail shrinks to a thin line of dirt with steep drop-offs and no barriers, a reminder that the landscape does not adapt to human comfort. Despite its severity, Napali is alive with subtle abundance. Vegetation clings to impossible slopes, fed by mist and rain. Seabirds nest along the cliffs, riding ocean winds with effortless precision. Offshore, the waters are deep and powerful, shaped by currents that have battered this coast for millennia. There is a profound sense of isolation here. The absence of development allows the land to feel timeless, untouched by modern urgency. It is easy to imagine earlier Hawaiian communities living in the valleys, cultivating taro and fishing the coastal waters, sustained by a landscape that offered beauty, danger, and survival in equal measure. Napali is not a place of balance, it is a place of extremes. Vertical cliffs meet horizontal ocean. Lush green meets endless blue. Stability meets erosion. The result is a landscape that feels constantly in motion, even when standing perfectly still. To witness the Napali coast is to understand how islands are shaped not gently but decisively. It is a reminder that some of the world's most breathtaking places are born from relentless pressure, and that beauty often emerges where land and sea refuse to compromise. Horseshoe Bend is a moment frozen in motion, a single curve where patience became power. Just outside the town of Page, the Colorado River performs one of its most dramatic acts. After traveling for hundreds of kilometers through desert and stone, the river suddenly bends almost completely back on itself, carving a near-perfect horseshoe shape into the sandstone. From the rim above, the water flows more than 300 meters below, distant, silent, and deceptively calm. What makes Horseshoe Bend extraordinary is not scale alone, but clarity. There is no gradual reveal, no transition. One step forward, and the land simply disappears. The edge is sharp, the drop is absolute. Sky, rock, and river align in a way that feels almost too precise to be natural. Yet nothing here was designed. Everything was earned. This curve was not formed by force, but by insistence. Over millions of years, the Colorado River followed tiny weaknesses in the rock, shifting direction inch by inch as the land slowly rose around it. Rather than cutting straight through, the river adapted, looping wider and wider until stone finally yielded. The bend is not evidence of dominance, but of negotiation, water responding to resistance with time. From above, the river appears smooth and controlled, its surface reflecting light like polished metal. But that calm is an illusion. The same water continues to grind away at the canyon walls below, carrying sediment that will one day reshape the bend again. Horseshoe Bend is not finished. It is simply paused long enough for us to witness it. There are no railings at the rim, no barriers between observer and void. Wind moves freely across the edge, and sound travels unpredictably. The absence of protection sharpens awareness. Every visitor feels it, that subtle recalibration where the body instinctively recognizes exposure. Here, nature does not cushion the experience. It presents it honestly. Light transforms the scene throughout the day. At midday, the canyon walls glow with warm reds and oranges. In the late afternoon, shadows stretch across the curve, deepening contrast and emphasizing depth. At sunset, the river darkens while the rock ignites, creating a brief moment where everything seems suspended between day and night. Horseshoe Bend does not overwhelm through complexity. It overwhelms through simplicity. One river, one curve, one drop, and yet that single gesture contains millions of years of movement, resistance, and change. Standing here, the lesson is immediate and unspoken. The most powerful transformations are rarely sudden. They are shaped slowly, persistently, by forces willing to adapt rather than break. Horseshoe Bend is not just a view. It is proof that time, when given enough patience, can bend even the hardest stone into something unforgettable. Monument Valley feels less like a landscape and more like a memory to the earth refuses to forget. A place where stone stands upright, alone and deliberate, as if the land itself chose what to leave behind. Located on the Navajo Nation, straddling the border of Arizona and Utah, this vast desert plain is defined by towering sandstone buttes and mesas that rise abruptly from the ground. They stand isolated, separated by miles of open space, their flat tops and vertical walls silhouetted against an enormous sky. Nothing crowds them, nothing competes with them. Each formation exists on its own terms. These monuments were not built upward, but revealed. Millions of years ago, this region was covered by layers of sediment deposited by ancient seas, rivers, and deserts. Over time, uplift raised the plateau, and erosion stripped away the softer rock, leaving behind the hardest sections, massive pillars of sandstone that resisted disappearance. What remains feels intentional, almost architectural, yet entirely shaped by time, wind, and water. Distance behaves differently here. The air is clear and dry, making the buttes appear closer than they are. What seems like a short walk can be hours away. The scale is deceptive, forcing the eye and the mind to constantly recalibrate. In Monument Valley, space is not something you cross quickly. It is something you absorb slowly. Light transforms the valley with extraordinary precision. At sunrise, the stone glows deep red and orange, emerging from shadow as if waking. By midday, contrast sharpens, revealing every fracture and vertical line carved by erosion. At sunset, the formations darken into silhouettes, their shapes simplified against a sky that fades from gold to purple to black. The land becomes graphic, almost symbolic. For the Navajo people, this is not scenery, it is sacred space, Each formation carries meaning, story, and identity, woven into oral history and spiritual tradition. The valley is not something to be consumed or conquered, but respected, a living presence shaped by both nature and belief. This cultural depth gives Monument Valley a gravity that goes beyond geology. Silence dominates here, but it is not empty. Wind moves across open ground. Sand shifts subtly underfoot. Ravens call from unseen perches. The absence of modern noise allows the land's presence to feel complete, undiluted. Monument Valley has become one of the most recognizable landscapes on Earth, immortalized in film, photography, and imagination. Yet no image fully captures the experience of standing among these forms, feeling their separation, their stillness, their endurance. What makes Monument Valley extraordinary is not complexity, but clarity. It shows what remains after time has taken almost everything else. It reveals a truth that few places express so clearly. When the noise fades, when excess erodes away, what stands is not chaos, but form, balance, and quiet power. Here, the earth does not rush, it stands. Yosemite is a place where the earth rises vertically and refuses to apologize for it. Here, stone does not slope or soften, it stands. Carved by glaciers and framed by granite walls, Yosemite Valley reveals some of the most iconic forms in the natural world. El Capitan rises nearly a vertical kilometer from the valley floor, a sheer face of granite so vast and smooth that it seems less like a mountain and more like a boundary. Nearby, Half Dome curves upward in a massive arc, its rounded summit shaped by ice and fracture rather than erosion alone. These formations do not invite interpretation, they declare presence. The valley itself was sculpted during the last ice age, when massive glaciers flowed through the Sierra Nevada, grinding rock into broad, U-shaped corridors. When the ice retreated, it left behind polished cliffs, hanging valleys, and an openness that amplifies scale. Space here feels deliberate, wide enough to expose the height of everything around it. Water completes the composition. Yosemite Falls, among the tallest waterfalls in North America, pours from hanging cliffs in seasonal surges, breaking into mist long before reaching the ground. In spring, snowmelt transforms the park into a network of cascading sound and motion. In late summer, water retreats, revealing bare stone and quiet pools, reminding visitors that even grandeur has rhythms. The park's ecosystems stack with elevation. Oak woodlands and pine forests fill the valley floor. Higher slopes host dense conifer forests, while alpine meadows bloom briefly near the tree line. Above them, exposed granite and wind dominate. This vertical layering creates a world where multiple climates exist within a single gaze. Yosemite has long drawn those seeking challenge as much as beauty. Climbers trace nearly invisible routes up El Capitan's face, committing to days suspended on sheer rock. Their presence emphasizes scale rather than diminishing it. Tiny figures moving across stone that remains indifferent to effort. Despite its popularity, Yosemite never feels domesticated. The granite does not yield to crowds. Storms still flood the valley. Rockfalls occur without warning. The landscape operates according to geological time, not human schedules. What makes Yosemite extraordinary is its clarity. There is no ambiguity here, no softness to hide behind. Everything is exposed: height, depth, risk, beauty. The park does not comfort, it confronts. To stand in Yosemite is to feel gravity made visible, to understand that some places exist not to be interpreted, but to be accepted as they are, immense, ancient, and entirely unconcerned with who is watching. Rocky Mountain National Park is a place where altitude becomes identity. Here, the world is measured not in distance, but in elevation. Rising along the Continental Divide, This high-altitude landscape exposes the raw structure of the Rocky Mountains with unusual clarity. Peaks rise sharply above treeline, their ridgelines serrated and uncompromising. Valleys, carved by ancient glaciers, open wide below, holding alpine lakes that mirror the sky with near-perfect stillness. The air is thinner here, sharper, and every movement feels deliberate. This is a vertical park. In just a few kilometers, the environment shifts dramatically. Lower elevations are filled with montane forests of ponderosa pine and Douglas fir, where elk move through meadows shaped by seasonal migration. Climb higher, and the forest tightens into subalpine zones of spruce and fir, where winters are long and growth is slow. Above treeline, trees vanish entirely, giving way to tundra, a vast, exposed world of low grasses, wildflowers, and stone that survives months of snow and relentless wind. The tundra is one of the park's most defining features. Though it appears sparse, it is one of the most resilient ecosystems on Earth. Plants here grow close to the ground, flowering quickly during a brief summer window. Marmots and pikas dart between rocks, perfectly adapted to cold and exposure. Life persists not by strength, but by efficiency. Trail Ridge Road cuts across the park at over 3,700 meters, making it one of the highest continuous paved roads in North America. From its overlooks, the scale of the Rockies becomes unmistakable. Peaks stretch endlessly in layered blue silhouettes, while clouds drift at eye level. Weather changes without warning. Sunshine can become hail in minutes. The mountains do not negotiate. Water is everywhere, born from snowmelt and gravity. Streams rush down steep slopes, feeding alpine lakes like Bear Lake and Emerald Lake, whose clarity feels almost unreal. These waters eventually split directions, flowing toward both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A quiet reminder that this range divides a continent. Rocky Mountain National Park is not dramatic in a singular way. There is no single landmark that defines it. Instead, its power lies in exposure. There are few places to hide here from wind, from weather, from scale. The environment is honest, even severe, yet never hostile. To experience this park is to feel the limits of the body and the clarity of the mind sharpened by height. Breath comes slower. Sound travels farther. Perspective widens. The Rockies do not overwhelm with spectacle alone. They teach through presence, showing what remains when life adapts upward and what the Earth looks like when it rises high enough to meet the sky on equal terms. Carlsbad Caverns is a reminder that some of the planet's most astonishing landscapes are not shaped by wind or light, but by darkness, patience, and gravity working far below the surface. Beneath the Chihuahuan Desert of southern New Mexico lies a vast underground world, carved not by rushing rivers, but by slow chemical processes unfolding over millions of years. What appears on the surface as dry, rugged terrain hides one of the largest and most complex cave systems ever discovered, a place where scale reveals itself only after descent. The experience begins with a transition. As daylight fades and temperature drops, the entrance opens into a vertical journey downward, following a natural path that winds more than 200 meters below the desert floor. With every step, sound changes. Air thickens. The outside world recedes until only stone remains. At the heart of the system lies the Big Room, one of the largest underground chambers on Earth. Its dimensions defy instinct. A space so vast, it could contain dozens of football fields beneath a ceiling lost in shadow. Yet despite its size, the chamber feels intimate. Silence presses in. Every footstep echoes gently, as if the cave is listening. The formations here are not dramatic in speed, but in time. Stalactites and stalagmites grow at rates measured in millimeters per century. Columns rise, where ceiling and floor eventually meet, recording thousands of years of mineral deposition in layered stone. Draperies hang like frozen waterfalls. Helictites twist in improbable directions, shaped by capillary forces rather than gravity alone. Unlike caves carved by flowing water, Carlsbad Caverns owes its existence to sulfuric acid. Millions of years ago, hydrogen sulfide rose from deep oil and gas deposits, mixing with oxygen-rich groundwater to dissolve the limestone from below. The caverns expanded upward, hollowing the earth in silence long before humans arrived. Life here adapts to absence. Insects and microorganisms survive without sunlight, relying on nutrients carried in by air, water, or animals. Above ground, the cave plays host to one of its most famous inhabitants. Thousands of bats that emerge at dusk in swirling columns, linking the underground world to the open sky, in a daily ritual of movement and survival. What makes Carlsbad Caverns extraordinary is its reversal of perspective. It does not rise to impress. It invites descent. It reveals that the Earth's greatest spaces are not always visible, and that transformation does not require force, only time, chemistry, and persistence. To walk through Carlsbad is to move through geological memory. To understand that beneath even the harshest landscapes, the planet is quietly at work, shaping wonders beyond the reach of light, waiting only for those willing to go down to see them. Denali National Park is a place where scale overwhelms certainty. Here, distance stretches, weather decides everything, and the land refuses to be predictable. At the heart of the park rises Denali the Great One, North America's tallest mountain, standing at over 6,190 meters. But height alone does not explain its presence. Denali rises from low surrounding plains, not from an elevated plateau, making its vertical relief more dramatic than any other peak on the continent. It does not simply stand tall. It dominates its surroundings absolutely. The mountain is visible only on rare, clear days. Clouds cloak it most of the year, hiding its summit and reinforcing its authority. Seeing Denali in full is considered an event, not an expectation. When it does appear, it feels less like discovery and more like permission. Surrounding the peak is a vast wilderness of tundra, braided rivers, and glacial valleys. This is not a park shaped for observation from a distance. There are no scenic loops or crowded overlooks. One road cuts into the interior, and beyond it, the land opens without fences or trails. Movement here is unrestricted and unforgiving. Life adapts with precision. Grizzly bears roam wide valleys in search of roots and berries. Caribou migrate across open tundra, their movements dictated by season and survival rather than boundaries. Wolves follow ancient routes shaped long before human presence. The ecosystem remains intact because it remains connected. Denali's climate is extreme even by Alaskan standards. Temperatures can swing more than 70 degrees Celsius between seasons. In summer, the sun barely sets, bathing the land in endless light. In winter, darkness dominates, and cold becomes a defining force rather than a condition to endure. At higher elevations, oxygen thins, storms intensify, and survival becomes a calculation measured in hours. What makes Denali extraordinary is not accessibility, but resistance. The park does not accommodate. It does not explain itself. It operates according to geological and biological time, indifferent to expectation. Standing here recalibrates scale. Human presence feels temporary. Roads feel fragile. Silence feels vast. The land does not invite conquest or comfort, only respect. Denali National Park reminds us that true wilderness is not something arranged for admiration. It is something that exists on its own terms, vast enough to humble, harsh enough to endure, and powerful enough to remain largely unchanged even when seen. Niagara Falls is the sound of gravity made visible, a place where movement never pauses, and scale is measured in volume rather than height. Straddling the border between the United States and Canada, Niagara Falls is not a single waterfall, but a system of 3 horseshoe falls, American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls, where the Niagara River drops suddenly over a hardened limestone ledge. Every second, thousands of tons of water surge forward, collapsing into mist and thunder with relentless force. The flow never weakens, it only continues. What makes Niagara extraordinary is not dramatic elevation, but consistency. The drop is modest compared to the world's tallest waterfalls, yet the sheer volume of water passing over the edge is unmatched. The river drains 4 of the Great Lakes, funneling immense inland waters into a narrow channel before releasing them in a continuous, unstoppable cascade. Erosion defines the falls. Over thousands of years, the constant impact of water has carved the gorge downstream, causing the falls to slowly retreat upstream at a measurable rate. This is a landscape in motion, actively reshaping itself within human timescales. Niagara is not a static monument, it is a process unfolding in real time. Mist rises endlessly from the base, feeding nearby vegetation and filling the air with moisture. Rainbows form and vanish with shifting light, appearing briefly in the spray before dissolving. Sound dominates the experience. Even from a distance, the roar announces the falls long before they come into view, vibrating through the ground and body alike. Human engineering has attempted to harness this power. Tunnels and diversion systems channel water into turbines, transforming raw force into electricity for millions of people. Yet even with control structures in place, the falls retain their authority. The river is guided, not tamed. From observation decks, boats, and walkways behind the falls, visitors experience Niagara at close range, enveloped by mist, noise, and motion. There is no quiet moment here, no stillness. The landscape communicates through force alone. Niagara Falls stands as a reminder that power does not always come from height or rarity. Sometimes it comes from persistence, from the unbroken repetition of a single action, carried out without pause for thousands of years. Here, nature does not whisper, it roars. Lake Tahoe is a place where clarity becomes scale, a landscape so precise, so sharply defined, that it feels less like scenery and more like a physical state of mind. Resting high in the Sierra Nevada at over 1,800 meters above sea level, Lake Tahoe is one of the largest alpine lakes in North America and among the clearest on Earth. Its waters are so transparent that boats appear to float in mid-air, their shadows sharply etched onto the lakebed far below. This clarity is not an illusion, but a result of extreme depth, cold temperatures, and a fragile ecological balance maintained over millennia. Formed by tectonic forces millions of years ago, Tahoe occupies a deep fault basin, later sculpted by glaciers. The lake reaches depths of more than 500 meters, holding enough fresh water to cover the entire state of California in a thin sheet. Yet despite its size, Tahoe feels intimate, encircled by pine forests, granite peaks, and long, quiet shorelines that draw the eye inward rather than outward. Light defines the experience here. Morning sun turns the water a pale, almost unreal turquoise. At midday, it deepens into a saturated blue that absorbs the sky itself. At sunset, the surface becomes a mirror of fire and shadow, reflecting the surrounding mountains with photographic precision. In winter, snow blankets the basin, transforming Tahoe into a stark contrast of white slopes and dark water, steam rising gently where cold air meets liquid depth. The lake is fed almost entirely by snowmelt, with no direct outlet to the ocean. This closed system makes Tahoe exceptionally sensitive. A single disturbance, erosion, pollution, warming temperatures leaves a visible mark. Over recent decades, scientists have tracked declining water clarity as a warning signal of climate pressure and human impact, turning Tahoe into both a natural wonder and a living environmental indicator. Surrounding the lake, ecosystems shift rapidly with elevation. Dense conifer forests give way to alpine ridges, while wetlands along the shore support migratory birds and native fish species. Trails rise from beaches to panoramic viewpoints in hours, offering constant transitions between water, forest, and stone. Lake Tahoe is not dramatic in the explosive sense. There are no eruptions, no collapses, no sudden drops. Its power lies in balance, in stillness held at massive scale, in beauty that feels precise rather than overwhelming. It is a reminder that nature's most profound moments are not always loud. Sometimes they are perfectly clear. After passing through canyons torn open by time, mountains born of fire, deserts where life survives like a miracle, and forests that stood long before human history began, one truth slowly comes into focus. Nature does not try to impress. We are the ones who arrive with measurements, explanations, and ambition. At the Grand Canyon, time does not hurry. In Yellowstone, the earth breathes on its own terms. Among ancient trees and winding rivers, existence continues without asking to be witnessed. These landscapes were not created for us. They existed before we arrived, and they will endure long after we are gone. Perhaps the greatest lesson these natural wonders offer is not their scale or power, but humility. When standing before forces that have been shaping the planet for millions of years, humanity is compelled to slow down, to listen, to observe, and to accept that not everything is meant to be controlled. Nature does not demand worship. It asks only for respect. And sometimes, the most intelligent response humanity can offer is not to build more, but to learn how to be silent, to recognize that we are only a small part of a story far greater than ourselves.